What archaeologists just discovered about the Pictish capital is sending shockwaves through the historical world, and even Joe Rogan is talking about it. Tucked away in the misty hills of northeastern Scotland, a forgotten kingdom has begun to re-emerge after more than 1,000 years. This isn't just about a few scattered relics or weathered stones, it's the revelation of an entire lost city, a city in the clouds, with roads, hearths, imported luxury goods, fortifications, and evidence of elite residences. This site may very well have been the seat of ancient rulers. Rogan called it an insane discovery, and for once, the hype isn't exaggerated. This isn't just a footnote in the history of early medieval Britain, it's a game changer, and once you see the evidence, you'll never look at Scotland the same way again. For centuries, the Picts have existed more in shadow than in substance. Mythologized figures described by Romans as painted warriors who emerged from the forests to fight, only to vanish again into the mist. They haunted the edges of Roman maps and the margins of early chronicles, leaving behind only fragments, mysterious stone carvings, a few ruins, cryptic symbols, and scattered bones. They had no known written language of their own, or at least, not one we've ever managed to decipher. Yet at their peak, the Picts controlled vast swaths of territory across what is now northern and eastern Scotland. They resisted Roman advances, influenced early Christianity, and laid foundations for what would eventually become the Kingdom of Scotland. Then, just as quickly as they rose, they disappeared. By the 9th century, the word Pict began to vanish from historical records. Historians long assumed they had been absorbed by incoming Scots or wiped out by Viking invasions. Their name lingered, but their presence evaporated. Unlike the Saxons or Gauls, the Picts left behind no grand palaces or libraries, no cities whose names echo through time, just cryptic symbols etched into monoliths, some depicting animals, weapons, or abstract patterns whose meanings remain a mystery. Archaeological interpretations were few and often limited. Most known Pictish hill forts were modest, temporary strongholds. There was little to suggest a central government, let alone a capital. The Picts were often treated as a cultural footnote in Scotland's broader historical narrative. That began to shift in the early 2000s, when excavations in and around the small village of Reiney in Aberdeenshire began yielding remarkable finds. Among them was a Pictish symbol stone carved with the image of a bearded man wielding an axe, dubbed the Reiney Man. This figure wasn't just stylistically unique, it was an unmistakable declaration of identity and status. Surrounding it, archaeologists uncovered fragments of high-status buildings, French glassware, and even Roman amphorae used for storing wine. These were not the possessions of commoners. Still, even with those finds, no one could have predicted what lay just uphill. Towering above Reiney is a jagged hill called Taponoth, rising more than 500 meters above sea level. Long known to locals as the site of an ancient fort, it had remained largely ignored by serious scholarship, remote, windswept, and believed to be little more than the ruins of a forgotten defensive structure. Then, in 2020, everything changed. A team from the University of Aberdeen undertook a comprehensive drone and LIDAR light detection and ranging survey of the summit and its surrounding slopes. What they saw astonished them. Hundreds of circular depressions, arrayed in deliberate patterns, like a ghost map of a vanished city. These weren't random or scattered. They were organized, layered, and extensive evidence of more than 800 roundhouse platforms spread across the hill. As they began excavation, the reality set in. This wasn't a refuge or an outpost. This was a full-blown urban settlement, likely home to 3,000 to 4,000 people during the 5th and 6th centuries, heart of the Pictish age. Radiocarbon dating confirmed the timeline. The implication was staggering. Far from being a loose network of scattered warbands, the Picts had built a city, a centralized hub complete with roads, agricultural zones, layered domestic structures, and elite spaces. The very idea of the Picts as a fragmented tribal society began to unravel. At the summit, the stone rampart showed signs of vitrification, having been burned at temperatures so intense the stones melted and fused. Whether this was the result of warfare, ritual destruction, or something else entirely is still under debate. But the symbolism is clear. Whoever ruled from the top of Taponoth did so with authority. As the public slowly became aware of these findings, additional excavation campaigns in 2021, 2022, and then again in 2024 and 2025 revealed even more. Layers of occupation indicated the site had been continuously used over generations. Hearths were built atop older hearths. Grain storage areas and animal pens suggested a level of domestic and agricultural sophistication previously unseen in Pictish contexts. The presence of luxury imports from Mediterranean pottery to ornate brooches pointed to sustained trade networks and elite tastes. Perhaps most significantly, evidence of social stratification began to emerge. Certain house platforms were larger, more centrally located, and constructed with more durable materials, indicating a hierarchical society with distinct ruling classes. All this evidence suggests Taponoth wasn't just a fortified outpost. It may have been the actual capital of a Pictish kingdom, or at least one of its most significant power centers. And if Taponoth was the crown, then Reiney was the jewel. Only a short distance down from the hill, the landscape flattens into farmland, but what lies beneath has turned out to be equally extraordinary. For decades, Reiney was thought of as a minor settlement. That changed when archaeological digs revealed not just elite residences and imported goods, but evidence of ritual spaces and political activity. The Reiney Man stone, standing over 6 feet tall, was found near the remains of a massive timber hall over 20 meters long, constructed in a style that closely mirrors royal feasting halls in early medieval Ireland. This was no random farmhouse. It was a place of ceremony, governance, and alliance. Building. Other surrounding structures suggested additional ceremonial or symbolic uses, potentially linked to kingship or religious authority. These discoveries challenged long-held assumptions about Pictish kingship. For years, historians believed the Picts operated in a decentralized tribal structure with occasional but the sophistication of Reiney and Taponoth together paints a different picture, one of a royal complex with regional influence, perhaps even international connections. The presence of Mediterranean artifacts, metalworking areas, ritual structures, and evidence of feasting all point to a powerful, hierarchical society, not a fading culture in decline, but one actively building something lasting. So why then did it vanish? Why was it never recorded in surviving Pictish, Roman, or Irish sources? That remains a mystery, but some scholars believe climate shifts, war, or political upheaval may have led to its abandonment. Others suggest that Taponoth and Reiney represent just one of several hidden Pictish capitals, obscured by time and the loss of their written records. What's certain is that these discoveries are rewriting everything we thought we knew about the Picts. They didn't simply disappear. They were building, and now, after more than 1,000 years, the echoes of their lost civilization are finally being heard. But now that shadow has formed, the evidence is compelling, and it's forcing scholars to revisit assumptions long held. Taponoth wasn't an outlier, it was a center. And if it was a center, then the entire understanding of the Pictish world must shift. They weren't just body-painted warriors who raided Roman walls. They were builders, organizers, rulers of a complex Highland realm we are only now beginning to understand. And there's more coming, even before the winter of 2025 ended. Plans were underway for another season of excavation. Geophysics teams have begun scanning new zones on the lower slopes. Soil samples from ancient hearths are undergoing isotope testing to trace food sources and trade patterns. One early test even revealed the presence of non-local grains, possibly imported or exchanged, further linking the Pictish economy to wider regional networks. There is also a renewed interest in oral traditions. For generations, Gaelic and Scots legends spoke of a Hill of Kings, where warriors swore oaths and stones whispered to those born under a certain moon. Long dismissed as fantasy, these tales are now being revisited with serious attention. If this truly was the Pictish capital, then its memory never fully vanished, it just lay dormant beneath centuries of misunderstanding. And so we arrive at a powerful realization. History is never truly settled. It lingers in hearthstones, in broken blades, in the mist that still clings to the slopes of Taponoth each morning. The Pictish kingdom was always there, we had simply stopped looking. But now we are looking again. And with each discovery, we peel back layers of time and assumption. What comes next is the most exciting part. A new research initiative led by the University of Aberdeen will combine archaeology with linguistics, botany, and climate history to reconstruct life at Taponoth in full detail: how people lived, moved, traded, believed. Digital models are already in development to bring this lost world to classrooms and museums. Visitors may soon walk through a virtual Pictish capital, rebuilt from real data and lived experience. The impact is cultural and political. Local communities around Reiney have launched heritage projects to protect the site, promote tourism, and celebrate a story once left untold. The Picts are no longer just stone-carved symbols, they are a source of national pride. They were lawmakers, town builders, founders of a legacy that would eventually evolve into the Scottish nation itself. And though many questions remain, Taponoth was abandoned, how it fell silent, what happened to the last people who called it home, we now know more than we ever did. Perhaps that's the true victory. Not that we've answered everything, but that we've finally started asking the right questions, and perhaps the greatest